Today we're going to take a look at some more complicated factoring. So I did try and give you some hints in that right-hand column. Make sure you use that if you have any additional notes you want to make to yourself that might be helpful when you're working on your assignment. So let's start with our first one, and we're asked to get a common denominator. That's our hint. So I'm going to multiply this one by 1 plus cosine theta over 1 plus cosine theta. Remember, when you get a common denominator, whatever you do to the numerator, you need to do the same thing to the denominator. It's kind of like the golden rule. Whatever you do to one side, do to the other. All right, and we're going to multiply that first fraction by sine theta over sine theta. So what happens is when we multiply, we get sine squared theta over sine theta times the 1 plus cosine. And then we will add that to, and I'm going to go ahead and distribute. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to distribute this cosine through here so we can add any like terms we might have. So we have cosine theta plus cosine squared theta all over our common denominator. So what we do now is remember our Pythagorean identity, sine squared plus cosine squared equals 1, and we have that in the numerator. So that simplifies to 1 plus cosine theta, which will cancel with my 1 plus cosine theta in the denominator. And after our 1 plus cosine theta cancels, we will be left with 1 over sine theta, and the reciprocal of sine is cosecant. Next, we're again going to get a common denominator. So a hint for fractions is get a common denominator. So I'm going to multiply this by 1 plus cosine x over 1 plus cosine x. And I'm going to multiply my first fraction by 1 minus cosine x. Simplifying, we get 1 minus cosine x plus my new numerator of 1 plus cosine x all over 1 plus cosine x times 1 minus cosine x. So in the numerator, obviously my cosines cancel. One's positive, one's negative, so I'm left with 2. And in the denominator, I'm going to distribute. So we have 1. And what happens when I distribute is I will get negative cosine x plus cosine x, which will also cancel. So we'll have minus cosine squared x in the denominator. Using the Pythagorean identity, again, sine squared plus cosine squared equals 1. So if you solve that for sine squared, you get 1 minus cosine squared. So we really have sine squared in the denominator. And the reciprocal of sine is cosecant, so it becomes cosecant squared. And our last one for this video, we are given an expression that's quantity squared. Now instead of distributing the square into the parentheses like is so tempting, what it means to square something is multiply it by itself. So we're going to write this out times itself. And then we're going to distribute. So we get sine times sine, which gives us sine squared. And then we'll have sine times cosine plus sine times cosine, or 2 sine cosine. And then plus cosine squared x. Again, Pythagorean identity, that's sine squared plus cosine squared. Hopefully you remember that one by now and are able to use it. That gives us 1 plus the 2 sine x cosine x. In our next video, we get to look at factoring.